awful time out there. Wow. Someone had a wonderful time. Someone had a wonderful time.
Well, stop now.
Anyway.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
I don't want uppers.
Sure we do. Sure we do. I almost set myself on fire. Good stuff. Oh, I got a lean.
So,
Whenever you want to start, dude.
welcome to the. If you didn't get it from the intro,
I'm sure they might have done.
they might have done.
They might have done.
But welcome to our special. It's all about Jack the Ripper. And obviously this will be released obviously just after we do the serial killers on the last podcast. So this is the in-betweener. We thought we'd do a special because we can't really.
We can't go out.
We can't go anywhere.
We can't go anywhere. We're stuck.
Yeah, so we thought, as we're doing serial killers, and as we mentioned in that podcast, we'll bring in maybe a serial killer from not just America.
But does the chap count?
Well, technically, the definition of a serial killer is more than one murder.
Yeah.
And more than one murder encasing a homicidal effect.
Okay.
I did my research on that bit.
I can tell. You're well into this one.
It's right up my alley, these ones. It's very weird.
Not Brick
Talking
Lane,
about alley.
Not Brick Lane, no? You're all good, yeah?
Yeah.
Brick Lane. Okay.
So, for those of you that don't know who Jack the Ripper
Who
is,
doesn't know who Jack the Ripper is?
well, I don't know,
Who?
maybe our American cousins, maybe some of them, some of the younger ones. I don't know. Just saying.
It's Jack the Ripper. He's like... He's a god.
He's our only god.
It's my father.
I don't know it.
Thing is, I've always loved Jack the Ripper. Always. Even as a kid, I had this book that was called, I think it was called Jumping Jack. And it was about a killer that jumped over walls. He could jump really high. And he killed women. I was like, wow, this is cool. And then obviously later on you learn about history and you see that Jack the Ripper was actually a real thing, not some type of thing that jumps over walls and shit.
Well, he most uncommonly known as the Butcher and the Leather Apron.
The Leather Apron and but Jack the Ripper in himself is possibly the best serial killer, if that's what we're going to class him as, in England. Hands down.
Yep.
Smartest.
Yep. Well, he is the smartest.
He definitely has it down to that point. Like, there is nothing in my head that says Jack the Ripper wasn't that good. In my head, Jack the Ripper is up there. Simply because he was never fucking really found.
No.
And
he was never found, there was no convictions.
No.
Nothing.
And to me, that dignifies how much of a goat you are.
Oh yeah. Like, the thing is, like, his murder spree lasted between August and November of 1883.
Okay.
1888.
I'll go along with this. I will let you do your points. We'll talk about it, then I'll bring in some other little facts.
Yeah.
That's pretty much probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
And I'll help you out with Jack the Ripper knowledge. As I do thoroughly love Whitechapel's area. Very much so. I would love to go back.
So, then all of his victims.
Yep.
There was 5 that are, I would say, definitely
The Ripper.
The Ripper style.
The Ripper.
style. And so they were all found mutilated and
Is it disemboweled?
Disemboweled.
Yeah.
And there was some sort of knowledge of the human anatomy.
Yeah.
And some sort of knowledge of butchery, where to cut that would leave less blood.
Yep.
Would leave less, stuff. Would not identify, like nowadays you can cut something and you can identify what blade it was.
So what we're already saying is Jack the Ripper was someone of medical background.
Yeah, medical or butchery background.
Yep. Knew the human anatomy pretty well.
Yeah, or studying it.
Yeah.
And was very methodical about what he did, how he did it, and who he targeted.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll let you run with this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
So
I fill in the blanks.
No, and we'll have discussions and different things. So the 5 victims over the course of those certain months.
That time frame.
Yeah. Was Marianne Nichols was the first one, found on August 31st.
Okay.
Then it was Annie Chapman, found on September 8th.
Yeah.
So already 9 days. 9 days later. Then you had Elizabeth Stride, found on September 30th.
Okay.
Also that night.
There was another. Yep.
Catherine Eddowes.
Yep.
Now, at this point, it's documented that the first one was the one that he was targeting. The second one, he was rushed.
Okay. Now, I'm going to add some insight.
Yep. No.
Just a bit of insight, just to help you out a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first one he targeted didn't really do the job properly. Is this the one?
Yeah. He was rushed.
So
he got
he was rushed. He slit her throat, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And got interrupted somehow.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in time, you have police officers patrolling the streets of Whitechapel. All eyes are on women in that area. Not necessarily prostitutes, but they're all in that area.
Yeah.
They're all alert.
Yeah.
They're all on high stakes. I think the women also got told to go around in pairs.
Yeah.
So while one was shagging down an alleyway, the other one kept watch.
Kept watch.
And then money was thrown on the floor, they'd pick it up and get on with their night.
Yeah.
Right? But most of them wasn't prostitutes.
No.
There was only 2 or 3. So there was 2 or 3.
There was 3 that was the prostitutes.
Yeah. And the others were just lower class women, possibly doing a few sexual favours, a couple of hand jobs.
Yeah. Just
little blowy.
with a bit of extra money.
Little blowy.
Yeah.
And just to get them by for a night in a safe place. In possibly
like some of them were just the lookouts.
Yeah. But also some of the women were trying to get just a bed for the night.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we mentioned how his 3rd victim was interrupted.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what's to say, who was the woman that came after the interruption?
Catherine Eddowes.
Okay, so Elizabeth Stride was the one that was interrupted.
Yeah.
Right, so say she was interrupted by Catherine Eddowes. She saw what was happening, he chased her down, did the job good and proper.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that is one situation that could have happened.
Situation that could have happened.
They did go around in groups. They were protecting each other at that time frame.
Yeah, or one was paying the other one to keep watch.
Yeah, they were a massive scale of Whitechapel murders in this process. There was other people that aren't listed in this section that were also killed, but not in Ripper fashion.
No, not in the Ripper style.
So already we can come to a conclusion that they were protective over each other after the first 2.
Yeah.
It was on red alert, police were storming the streets.
Or there could have been more before his first.
Exactly.
It's purely for the fact of these ones are the top. These ones are the 5 prominent Ripper cases.
Yep.
They've got all of the same handiwork and different cuts, different
minus
ways
the one that was interrupted.
Yes, but then later on it said that he went back to finish the job.
Okay.
But again, they can't say it was and it wasn't.
But if that woman was just regularly killed, I mean, a lot of women.
It was just around the corner apparently that he did do them.
I mean, when I looked at the map of Whitechapel, you've got Brick Lane and all the other places, right? someone in that area navigated it very well. They knew the different roads to take.
Yeah, and they knew the routes.
So I think victim number 4 might have seen victim number 3. Saw it took place
on his way back to wherever he was
yeah,
hiding.
someone saw what happened.
Saw it.
Because I think number 4 is the most fucked up one, where he literally cut her face.
Yeah, he went
He went to town.
all in.
Yeah.
All in, and you know.
Okay.
It suits the thing where he got interrupted and he took all of his anger, all of his vengeance.
And this is where I still seem to think she saw what happened to number 3.
It fits.
Yeah.
It fits.
Right, go ahead.
Number 5 was literally a Mary Jane Kelly on November 9th.
Yeah.
And then after that, the Ripper murders, they never really took on the same kind of
caliber
as these 5. So it was, in essence, that Mary Jane Kelly was his last one.
Okay.
And then he just disappeared.
Right, okay. So I wrote down some stuff.
Yeah. No.
Which will...
Yeah, we'll fill in the blanks in between those.
Which will now touch on possibly what you now think of. Okay, so the last killer... Well, the last woman that was killed was Mary Jane
Kelly.
Okay. So...
November 9th.
If we go through them in this order, because I've got the list of where they were killed.
Yeah.
So... First one?
Mary Ann Nicole.
Okay, her location was found in Bucks Row in Whitechapel. Right now, that is a very money-orientated area.
Okay.
It's a very popular area.
Yeah.
Mainly Whitechapel's kind of filled up of a lot of fast food, really fancy restaurants, right?
Yeah.
But Bucks Row, I could imagine, was quite a posh area.
That was where the higher classes.
Despite the whole of Whitechapel being a slum, I reckon there was a lot of posh places in that area.
Yeah.
So, at around 3:30 on August the 31st in 1888, a carter named Charles Cross was making his way to work along Bucks Row, a narrow cobbled Whitechapel street that was lined on one side by dark imposing warehouse buildings and on the other by a row of 2-storey houses. Right? Like so many of the district's alleyways and passageways, street lighting in Bucks Row was minimal. Right, so already you could use your streets if you live there to your advantage to pop these people off.
Dark crooks and alleyways.
So basically this guy found the body. As he drew closer to a shadow on the floor, in fact the prone form of a woman was then formed, who was either dead or drunk. As Charles Cross stood rooted to the spot and unsure of what to do next, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw another carter, Robert Paul, walking towards him. "Come and look over here," Cross called. "There's a woman lying on the pavement." The two men stepped gingerly over the road and stooped down over her body. She was laying on her back, which then makes me think she was possibly stabbed from the front or attacked from behind.
Or behind, grabbed, sliced, dropped, run.
Her legs straight out and her skirts were raised almost over her waist. Okay.
He's having a cheeky look.
Cheeky look.
Oh, hello. And then...
So as we go on, they alert, the police, things are then formed. Night watchmen saw something. They were joined at the murder site by Patrick Mulshaw, a night watchman who was working at the nearby sewer works. Although he did confess that he sometimes dozed on duty, he was empathetic that he had been awake between 3 AM and 4 AM and that he had not seen or heard anything suspicious. I think it's just a lazy security guard.
Yeah. Right. He definitely fell asleep.
he definitely was asleep.
He was asleep.
At around 20 minutes to 5 o'clock, a passing stranger had told him, "Watchman, old man, I believe somebody is murdered down the street," and immediately went round to Bucks Road to have a look. Right, so this was obviously the first killing, Mary Nichols. It seems that it happened in a really dim lit area. Very nicely.
Something where the killer could hide. He's got offshoots. The alleys are all built up on one another, and cobbled streets are all built up. You're all squeezed into one area, and there's definitely places where he could hide, attack, and escape without someone seeing him. It will just be a dark figure running away. or walking towards something. You know, that you would never be able to say what he looked like or what she even looked like. There's some conspiracy theory.
It
about
seems
a
that
female,
it seems
it's
that it
definitely-
was that area would be the first possible good place to kill someone off.
Oh yeah.
Very quickly.
Oh yeah.
So the next woman in question,
Annie Chapman,
Okay.
found on September 8th.
she was found in Spitfields, or Spitalfields.
Spitalfield.
Yeah. She'd been horrifically mutilated, and the killer had made off with her womb.
So already, you know, he needed something on
Yeah.
a medical background or an autonomous background.
Yeah.
You know, to say, to have minimal cuts.
Yeah.
In
Already
that
you're
area.
looking at
A medical background.
a medical background to remove a womb.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been done quickly. You could just stab someone, rip something out, run off.
Yeah.
But the
then,
incisions and the cuts that were in the police documents said it was done specifically in a way.
in a way, it's a medical background or a butchery background.
Then we have Elizabeth Stride, the one who
Yeah.
was interrupted.
Yeah.
So her body was not mutilated.
No.
None at all.
No, it was. I think it was just her.
The fact that her body had not been mutilated led to speculation that Elizabeth Stride's killer had been interrupted. Which then leads me on to her next one.
Yeah, which
Which?
is Catherine Eddowes. Oh, that is bad.
Yeah. With Catherine Eddowes, the savagery had increased, with the killer targeting her face, making off with her uterus and her left kidney. Now look
So
at
he's
that for
he's
a
working himself
Yeah.
up.
Look at this
What
for a
face?
face.
It's definitely mutilated.
It's cut to fuck.
Mm.
Right. Then Mary Kelly.
Yep. Mary Jane Kelly, November 9th.
So she was found in Miller's Court. And that and the other ones are all relatively close to each other.
Yep.
Within about 5 to
working
10
its way
minute
round.
walking distance.
Yeah, it's
right?
working its way around.
So Mary Kelly was murdered in her room. She had been virtually skinned to the bone. Many experts believe that she was Jack the Ripper's last final victim.
Yeah.
Right. Now we're going to move on to this one.
Yeah.
Alice Mckenzie. So this was Castle Alley in Whitechapel.
Yeah.
It happened July the 17th, 1889.
Okay.
So what was the last report? November the 9th.
November the 9th of
Right.
1888.
The discovery of the body of Alice Mckenzie prompted speculation that Jack the Ripper had returned to Whitechapel.
So yeah, it's kind of moved away, let it lie down a bit,
Yeah.
come back.
Yet again, another woman in a poor state,
Mhm.
or possibly needed money.
Yeah.
Next one, Francis Coles, Swallows Garden, Whitechapel. Yet again, February the 13th, 1891. Right, Francis Coles was the final Whitechapel murders victim. A man named Thomas Sadler was charged with her murder. So there was a lot of murders going on.
Yep,
Around Whitechapel.
There was the Whitechapel murders,
Yep.
which prompted me to believe, obviously, the first one.
Yep.
Obviously, they were already on high alert.
Yep.
Way before the first one.
Yeah.
Because these murders are going on. It's just a specific man.
Yep.
Let's say Jack the Ripper that had done the most brutal killings,
Yes.
or the most
Now,
direct route kind of thing.
your first one,
Marianne Nichols.
Marianne. Now, if I read this bit to you,
Yeah.
you can then figure out whether this might be the first one before.
Before Annie Chapman.
Yeah. Yep. Before Annie Chapman or Marianne Nichols.
Okay.
Right. So this kind of headlines the Whitechapel murders.
Yeah.
This is what opened up the Whitechapel murders. Right. So basically there was a woman, her name was Emma Smith. She was attacked the 3rd of April 1888.
Okay, so this is way before the August 31st.
But there was something about her death that seemed to trigger me to make me think, was this a test run? So she'd been assaulted by 2 men.
Right.
Right, so Jack the Ripper could be
Part of a gang.
part of a gang. Could be 2 people, could be 3 people. But she actually had half of her ear cut off, and she was bleeding profusely from down below.
Yeah.
Which then makes me think, was that an attempt?
Mm. What can I get away with?
Yeah, was this an attempt? I mean, she died later on in hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much, she was seen by a doctor. On examining her, he found that the injuries that she had suffered were truly horrific. So this word in itself, truly horrific, brings me to these 5 as well.
Yeah.
Right? A portion of her right ear was torn, and the peritoneum and other internal organs had been ruptured, which he later stated led him to believe that the injuries had been caused by some blunt instrument having been thrust into her with very great force.
Mm.
That's back then, like, it was known for women to get attacked.
Yeah, but not brutalised in that fashion.
I mean, half of her ear cut.
Or torn.
Already, that kind of makes me think, oh, okay. But this woman, she opened up the Whitechapel murders.
Yeah.
This is where it all began.
This was one of the first.
It was pretty much the start, but they were still inconclusive whether it belongs to the famous 5.
Yeah.
So already you got someone with a surgical background.
Yep.
That removes kidneys, wombs, and everything else in between.
Mm.
Now
well, it was literally working his way up the human anatomy.
Yeah. Which to me then makes me think. I've always kind of thought it whenever I looked into Jack the Ripper. I mean, like I said, I love Whitechapel.
Mm.
I love the area.
Mm.
I like the Jack the Ripper character of that area.
Mm.
Anything London related in terms of gruesome history, I really indulge in this. But Jack the Ripper has always been a target, and my main thought process behind all of this, and I think it was also put into From Hell, was it seems a form of sacrifice.
Mm.
And that was obviously where, you know, my brain started to wander. And I was like, is this actually part of a sacrifice? Like, find a woman, chop a bit out, carry on, find another woman, chop a bit out. I mean, the only one that seems to fucking survive most of this was Elizabeth Stride with just a slit across the neck.
Yeah, there's, as I said, all but one, well, as we said, all but one was a prostitute.
Yeah.
Basically,
they did things just to get a bed.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean they were prostitutes,
no.
but
they used to call them Lady of the Night.
Yeah.
And it was purely anything, you know, that they haven't had the best of upbringings. You know, there's a room for the night, a bed for the night. You know, it's food even.
Yeah.
They were doing it for food. They were doing it for everything and anything.
There is one woman that I managed to write down. I think it was Anne Chapman, who I think.
Yeah, they were all basically, all of their bodies were mutilated or something taken.
Yep.
Apart from one where her throat was just cut.
I think it was. Oh no, it might be Mary Nichols.
Which was right, I believe.
It was Mary Nichols. No. I think it's Anne Chapman. Okay, so most of these women seem to be in their 40s, late 30s, early 40s. Yeah, it seems to be right. So one of the suspects that they believed it could have been was the one where it was Mary Jane Kelly, where all her clothes and everything else, where she was murdered in her bed, all her clothes and everything else was neatly done. Neatly arranged. The room wasn't a slaughter scene.
No.
It was all very neat and tidy.
It was staged.
Yeah.
Lack of a better word, it was staged.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to quite fit the bill. Because obviously she was killed in her bed. Whereas everyone else was killed out on the street. So to me I'm thinking like maybe that was an inside job. And this is where
maybe with the heightened sense of, you know, I can't really keep wandering around, I'm going to get caught.
Yeah.
I'll toss someone some money, you know, I'd offer them the bed for the night.
Yep.
And I'll do it in a room.
Yeah, with a lot of people walking around,
maybe it was just a heightened sense of security at the time, and he couldn't risk doing it.
Yeah.
On the streets.
I mean,
anymore.
in my head, I'm now wondering, were most of these people actually a target?
Or were
was
they, he was walking around and the first
Yeah.
person he come to?
I mean, there was, I can't remember which one of the women it was. He often referred to this woman, I can't remember what woman it was from the life of, definitely. He referred to this woman as his wife, but she was in fact just lodging with him. And I think he was actually one of the suspects, because all the time he was in work, she wouldn't have to go out and do prostitution. And this kind of made me think, like, okay, so he killed off a few prostitutes to keep her off the streets, so then, you know, she didn't have to go out and do that. But the night of her death, she actually had an argument with this gentleman, who he kept saying, you know, oh, that's my wife, and, you know, it wasn't, they weren't married at all, right? But there was an argument later that night, the domestic violence between that night before she died was unreal, that he actually became a suspect. Simply because of it. So whatever had happened, domestic-wise, between one of these women, I can't remember what one, and this gentleman that was a suspect for the Ripper case, it seemed like it pointed to him. Whether he killed the prostitutes, or the women, to keep her off the streets, to stop her going out selling bits of her body or doing little sexual favours. But the argument happened when he was recently unemployed, so he didn't have the money, so she went back to work in the streets.
To earn that.
And he wasn't happy with the fact that she would come home with a couple of women, and he was like, oh, no, this ain't how it's meant to go. And she was like, no, they're friends, you know, I'll invite them in, and there was sexual stuff happening. He wasn't happy about that. So he wanted this woman all to herself. But he was one of the suspects, and it turned out it actually wasn't him. But still, that's yet again, it's another look.
It's interesting with the psychology of that aspect.
Yeah, kill prostitutes,
you know, like,
keep her with
keep
me.
her off the feet, like through fear.
Yeah.
And
but
just
he
try and
was
control her.
Yeah, he was one of the suspects. But the last death, where all her clothes are neat and tidy, she'd actually managed to get into bed in her, not pyjamas, but her bedwear.
Yeah.
But for all her clothes to be neat and tidy.
It's a bit. I reckon that's.
But she was killed in the bed. That's one of the main things. She was actually killed in the bed.
Yeah. I reckon that's the thing. It's the hype, or the whatever's going on in that era. It's too risky for him now. He needs to get off the streets.
He needs to do it in a way where he's not seen.
He now either needs to reinvent himself, but come at it from a different angle to protect.
But then he's already got away with this many people.
That's what I mean.
Why would he need to?
Why would I need to risk? Yeah. But then,
it's
then again, why would he need to then risk everything that he's done?
Yeah.
Just for one more.
I tell you what, it's a weird situation. But whoever in Whitechapel at that time knew the area, knew the places women would be.
Yeah.
Many of them
knew the hidey hole kind of things.
Yeah.
Like,
many people knew something was going on. And to me, this is, you know, it's one of the things where it's like, oh, okay. So it's
like, I would say, like after that, obviously, not necessarily after it, but what threw the police off was, in one occasion, half of a human kidney was sent to the police.
Is this in the From Hell letter? Was this sent with the From Hell letter?
It wasn't sent, no, it was just sent on its own.
Okay.
So it was literally half a human kidney.
Yep.
Was sent to the police, which may have been extracted from one of the victims, or from a victim. But then, you know, back then there was no, like, you know, they'll do an autopsy, but, you know, if someone's already been cut open, then they wouldn't really open them up even more.
You're not going to go that far.
No.
You wouldn't.
And also, obviously, a series of letters which he actually announces himself as Jack the Ripper.
But wasn't it the media that pronounced him Jack the Ripper?
No.
Because I swear it was along the lines of they classed him as Jack the Ripper. I swear he said, "Thank you for the name Jack the Ripper. I'll keep it."
It probably was, yeah. I know, like, some people are saying, like, with obviously the J's and stuff,
Yeah.
the way that he done the J, his name's got to be something beginning with J. Like, it's too fluid.
Yeah.
You know, like, with the Ripper, it's fast.
Yeah.
And, like, it's fast and not really fluid enough. You know, it's more scratched into the page rather than written on it. Well, that's the effect, but then that's why they said, sort of like a media explosion back then, and then they pronounced him as that, and vice versa kind of thing.
See, to me, it seems that Jack the Ripper knew the area, he knew his targets, but it also seems to me that as there is no real evidence, even that guy that claimed he had evidence and it turned out it was like 1 in 1,000 or in 1 in 1,000 or whatever it was like a wrong, you know, a wrong misprint. Yeah, it seemed that 1,000 people, like even today, right now, there's over 1,000 suspects in the world that could be Jack the Ripper, all related to him.
Yeah. And then that extrudes itself into not 1 in 1,000. Or 1,000.
Yeah.
It then includes, you know, it's now in the millions.
Exactly.
It's now into the millions.
I mean, there's been they call it ripology or ripperology, and they have literally tried analysing things.
Yeah, there's nothing purely concrete.
No.
To say that it's any one person.
Yeah. See, when I very first,
like even the cut marks, they're all the same.
And they're accurate.
And they're extremely accurate.
A lot of people, I think, if you were to do, just a Google search, it would say Jack the Ripper was a butcher. I think that is one of the main things that comes up. He was a butcher of his time.
Butcher of his time. Not necessarily a butcher as we know it.
But they still said he was a butcher, and then they said, but this information is incorrect. Because they can't pinpoint.
They can't know.
And to me, you're looking at a guy who knew the area, fluidly killed, happily done it. Whether it was a form of human sacrifice, I don't know. But to me, it seems like it was such a big...
It does.
It's a big killing. It's a big hit for that area. I mean, you've picked a really poor built-up area, in terms of wealth and everything else. I mean, many of the women did actually roam the streets.
What's the attraction to it? You know, why did Jack pick that area?
There's some speculation on why. I mean,
from some aspects, he chose that area because no one knew about it.
It was easy.
You know, it was another East End district.
Yep.
You know, it's a district in London that was very impoverished.
Yeah.
And you think, why would you pick that area?
Yeah.
If not to build it back up again.
Yeah. And if also the people that have been lined up as suspects back then, the list of suspects did go on for quite a while.
They did.
But one of them was mentioned that it was a prince.
Yeah. One of Queen Victoria's grandsons.
Yeah. Now, here's some inside information for you. He had syphilis, which drives people mental, crazy. So the royal family could easily cover up these deaths.
Yeah, as him just going or running away and doing these things.
He had
running
syphilis.
Back, going. It's that Jekyll and Hyde thing, isn't it? It's that Jekyll and Hyde thing of, you know, you've got a sickness.
Yeah.
It only comes out at night when you're trying to get to sleep, when you're, where you're...
Matt, all the killings took place at the weekend. Every single one took place at a weekend. So the weekend, most busiest, most people getting drunk and merry.
Yeah.
Why not?
You've earned all your money at the end of the week. You're going to go out and...
That they would literally just drink rum. Rum and gin would be their main... I mean, I think it's called the Bell's Pub, which is in Whitechapel. You could stand there And even being in Whitechapel, there is a feeling. It is atmospheric as hell.
It's that uneasy,
Yeah, it is.
like unnerving
It's where it's all built up now. You walk the streets of where these victims were found, or where close enough to where they were spotted. You look around and you're like, oh wow, okay.
There's so many places that this person.
Even now, despite
hide
obviously the whole area being modernised, built up, fancy hotels, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Walking around, you still have cobbled streets.
Mm-hmm.
You still have
all of the back alleys.
Yeah, you still have all of this lined up. And to me, it's like, wow, the atmosphere of just this Whitechapel area in London is packed.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, it has a feeling. And obviously, I've seen the church in Whitechapel. You know, I've walked around it. I've thoroughly got engrossed in that whole area. But to me, it's like a serial killer in this area. Could have been a prince. Could have been this other guy.
Yeah,
there
was an influx of immigrants and stuff to London to work, to, you know.
Yeah, people with medical history as well.
Yeah, a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Now, one of the suspects is basically a Polish immigrant.
Yeah.
He was lodging at one of the lodging houses.
Yeah.
That were there. He was working at a factory that was down the road, kind of thing. And he was one of the suspects purely because he come from a medical background.
Yep.
He didn't have a license to practice over here.
No.
But
where are you gonna practice on prostitutes?
But yeah, exactly. Like, and even he has even said, like, I can account for every day apart from these 5.
Yeah.
Or 4 days, shall I say.
Yep.
I can account for every day of my life, but I cannot account for these 4 days.
It makes you question.
And it does make you question. But for those 4 days, it actually proved that 3 of them he was passed out.
Yeah.
In a tavern, in a pub, God knows where else.
It's crazy to think that someone out there could be a relation to Jack the Ripper, they just don't know it.
Mm.
That's what's really fascinating to me. I'm like,
wow,
no one found this, who it was.
No, or they do know, it's only like a family secret.
Oh, like the royal family. But no, what was his name? Prince?
I don't know what his name was.
Oh.
It's never actually said.
Oh.
It's just one of the Queen's
sons. Grandsons. Well, basically,
Queen Victoria's grandsons. So.
I read a bit about his history. He didn't like prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
He had syphilis from one of them. And maybe he set out on a rampage to get revenge. Because syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. It can literally drive you insane.
Yep, it affects your nervous system.
It affects your brain.
Everything.
But whoever Jack the Ripper was had money on the night of these murders. They knew the area very well.
Yep.
And now this is where I know it couldn't be a possible thought. I knew it couldn't be a possible suspect. But there's certain little bits in this that I'm about to say that you're going to be like, oh.
Go right ahead.
See, I'm not the only one that probably thinks this, because I swear I saw something where it said it could have been a female.
I have read this.
Yes.
I have read this. And that's why I was just like, whoever it is.
To bring my thought process into perspective, whoever, if it was a female, there would never be a suspect.
No.
If it was a woman in the medical field and she was covered in blood, like a midwife, you're not going to pay much attention to her.
You wouldn't bat an eyelid.
No, right? Say she was a midwife, say it was a woman, or say she was a midwife and also a lady of the night. She knew who to target. She knew what woman may make more money than what she would. Might be good at,
certain
getting a guy off.
Yeah.
So she could target them, which then reduces the prostitution, which then enables her to get more work. When all these killers or deaths and the killer started coming about, there was a lot of witnesses saying it was a guy in a black coat, he had a mustache, and he had a hat. that was pretty much the whole of London at that point.
Yep.
So
they had a dark coloured cloak.
Yeah, but to me,
which the midwives of that era
Yep.
had a black cloak and a blue uniform.
but
Dark blue uniform.
but to me, like I said, that is anyone in London at that time. They all had fancy
I will add
moustaches.
a little bit to
Yeah.
this myth.
Yeah.
Myth /
Yeah.
legend. She was against prostitution.
Oh,
Purely-
you adding a woman to the mix.
The woman.
Okay.
She was. This is what I've read up on, like the woman part of it. The female persona of Jack the Ripper,
Or Jill.
or Jill.
Jill the Ripper.
Jill the Ripper.
Yeah.
I'm coming down that hill.
Yeah.
Her persona was basically that she was a midwife. She believed that the reason why all of the wombs and
She knew the female anatomy.
Yeah, within that area, the reason why is because she believed that they shouldn't be able to bear children because of the misdeeds that they've done.
Okay.
Because of
that
the
kind of
prosti-
fits. That kind of fits what I was saying.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean.
But
like, it's-
that fits my conclusion because you're not going to bat an eyelid if it's a woman. The papers have already insisted it's a male. Many males around that time look the same.
what's easier to disguise yourself as?
Yeah. So
One of the general populace
midwife knows all about the body,
of female
right?
anatomy.
Even if this woman did sell bits of her body or did pleasure men for a bit of money, right? She knew who to target, where to go home. You got the fear already in Whitechapel, so women are always together.
Yep.
This is where my thought process went. Like, no matter how much evidence comes forward, it was a male. I still seem to suspect it was a female, and it would make more sense.
So
you could
she could go around and be like,
You
"Oh,
could-
I'll keep watch for you while you do yours. You keep watch for me while I do mine." And then, but before obviously she gets around to do hers, she
kills.
she kills.
She kills, leaves the scene, or raises the alarm. And no one's going to suspect a woman, judging by the fact women are on the target list. So that was my thought process.
It fits.
It does.
It fits.
And
there's
for her
there's no female suspects.
No, and for her to hide herself, how easy is it to wear like one of the little trilby hats that they wore?
Yeah.
Put your hair up, put a trilby hat on, put a cloak on, do your deed.
Fake hair as a moustache.
Yeah. Remove a womb. You know what the female anatomy is.
You know how to do it.
Yeah. Or it could have been someone in the medical field as a midwife training, but made some money to jerk a couple of men off at night time.
Who knows?
That was my theory. That was my thought process because everyone seems to suspect a male.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, step out of that because many of the men back then would use these women as punch bags, sex toys, and just didn't give a shit.
No.
Like the amount of women that are
They were less than dirt.
Yeah, the women that would meet up in the Bell's pub, they would often all gather together and then go to their separate streets and try and attract some men just so they could have a drink and a bed for the night. So in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, well they'd all meet up. As she would be an inside informant, she would know what woman goes where.
And who to go with.
Yep.
At certain times.
Yeah. And this would also explain possibly the death of Mary Jane Kelly happening in her bedroom. Because many of the women slept in the same room to save a bit of money. And for everything to be all neat, I can't imagine a man making the bed or folding up clothes.
No. But then, you know, some psychotic people like do that.
Yeah.
Like, there are cases where, you know, they
But
use it as a stage.
Do you see how it would make sense? Because the women would sleep in the same room together. They'd often go back to certain bed and breakfasts.
Yeah.
Cut the cost, have a room, spend
half price.
Spend some money on drink, take it back. That would happen. And yet these women all kinda gathered together. Apart from the first one, the rest all stuck together
Within the same
group. They all knew each other.
Yeah.
So for me to think it's a woman, it just kind of pinpoints that area. I can imagine a woman killing someone, then tidying up the house afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, there's blood on the sheets. Oh, let's do. It just fits. And for women to share rooms, and for these women to, you know, kiss one another and do things with each other, as well as then women do things to men, get some money, then meet up, and then all basically just a bit of slap and tickle in the
one big orgy.
Yeah, a bit of slap and tickle in the bedroom. But to me, it fits.
It does fit.
But then they did say it was a person in the medical field, and they did say it was a butcher and all this other shit. But it doesn't settle with it because it's inconclusive.
The problem is they can't pinpoint what it is.
So
they can only make assumptions.
So if we were to look at the suspects, and you know, who would you really pick of the suspects?
See, in the back of my head, I would literally say it was someone from money. It was. You know, it was a prince or something.
Okay.
But then, you know, the immigrant side of the thing does fit.
Okay. So, Aaron Posminsky? Severely high esteemed police officers believe that the Polish barber, Aaron Posminsky, was behind the Jack the Ripper murders in London, and the fact that his something or other DNA was found on Catherine Eddowes' shore certainly doesn't help his case. But then again, he could have just been doing some sexy shenanigans.
Exactly, that's the aspect of it. Like, they can't pinpoint down one specific person for one specific thing because of the background of the ladies.
So Francis Craig. In recent years, many Ripperologists have started believing that Mary Jane Kelly's husband was behind all the Jack the Ripper killings in London. Craig was working as a reporter at the time of the murders, and was even covering the police courts and inquests on the Whitechapel murders as well as other crimes.
So he knew the backgrounds of the stories. He knew. How
he lived in Whitechapel on Mill End Road, which is just 7 minutes away from the first Jack the Ripper murder scene. And in 1884, he married Elizabeth Weston Davis, who is believed to have been a prostitute who went by the name of Mary Jane Kelly, Jack the Ripper's final victim. Theory suggests that once Craig discovered his wife was working as a prostitute, she went into hiding in the East End under her
facilitated name of Mary Jane Kelly.
Craig started plotting her murder, but disguising his involvement by killing other prostitutes in the area beforehand. So we have Walter Sickert. Book Portrait of a Killer, Jack the Ripper case closed. Authorities. Author Patricia Cornwall pinpointed artist Walter Richard Sickert as the real Jack the Ripper and even claimed to have found DNA evidence which links Sickert to at least one of Jack the Ripper's letters. And I think this is the part where, you know, the letters that were sent into the police, it was part of a 25-page paper spread, and they found these papers at his home, which were sent to the police. This is the chap.
But he then also said that he got sent. He got sent a copy because of the journalist. Blah blah blah.
It's like,
or he was doing research and he came across something, and it was very.
All these people, Montague John Druitt, although there may not be any concrete scientific evidence against him, the fact that Jack the Ripper murders in London's East End ended after Druitt's suicide convinced one London detective. So why did he commit suicide? Let's find out. Montague John Druitt was an Oxford-educated man from a fairly good family, although some believe that he was sexually insane. He was born in Wimborne Minster, Dorset, and during his lifetime he once worked as an assistant schoolmaster in Blackheath in London. Many experts believe Druitt was behind the murders, as they are convinced that Jack the Ripper was a Whitechapel local. Druitt resided a few miles away from Whitechapel on the other side of the Thames, and he was also seen in the Whitechapel area around the time of the Jack the Ripper murders all going on.
But then again, he could be just there to, you know, pay his due. Get his
sexual fix.
You know, before he goes.
On November the 9th, 1888, 7 weeks after the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, which is believed to be the Jack the Ripper's final victim, Druitt's body was found floating in the Thames. Investigators believe that the cause of death was suicide and that he had been at the bottom of the river for at least several weeks around the time of Mary Jane Kelly's murder. But you have all these people that simply just...
They're thrown in because they have some connection to it.
But Aaron Kosminski is the one that comes up in your Google search. Every time.
Every time.
Every
And
time.
that's the Polish barber, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Polish immigrant kind of thing.
Yeah. So
that's what I mean. There's nothing concrete.
there isn't.
There's nothing concrete. Like
There isn't.
obviously, because of their backgrounds, they're gonna have DNA from a lot of people.
A lot of men.
A lot of men.
All over their hands and lips.
Well, that's the thing. You know, these ladies are known for not washing.
Well.
Because that's expensive.
Yeah, like if they book the B&B, they'll have to book a bath with more money.
Mm.
So this is why so many sexually transmitted diseases got passed around so quickly.
Because there's just not enough money to facilitate all of the stuff that you would need to keep yourself clean. You know,
But
you even had to pay for medication.
Yeah.
Like we do now, but it was extortionate back then. It
I
was
mean
like
they
£100.
couldn't afford it.
They couldn't afford
There's
it.
no way they could afford the medication.
No, the only way that they
So
could
if they
afford
couldn't
the
open
free
their
was,
legs, they'd have to use their mouth and everything else between this section.
Yeah.
So imagine just rocking up on your horse and cart and looking at a woman going, how much? And she's like, well, it'd be $3 for my hand, or 3 pence for
Three
me hand.
shillings
Yeah,
and-
3 pence for me hand.
Mm.
5 pence for me mouth, and my vagina's off limits because it's a bit smelly. It's like, oh, go on, horse, off you go. You won't bother.
I'll go to the next street.
Yeah. But who would you suspect is the killer?
I would say that
points?
for me it's royalty.
Really?
It's a massive cover up. But then, you know, Mary Jane Kelly's, you know, husband that she estranged herself from,
Yeah.
you know, it would fit more
Yeah.
like hearing that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would fit more.
I mean, I think what's
because
with
they started,
suspects-
and as soon as obviously Mary Jane Kelly,
Yeah.
you know, had died, it stopped.
I mean, you've got to think though, there was a lot of killings all around London area at this point. And these 5 stand out, obviously, for the main purpose.
For
the main purpose of organs removed and body mutilation and everything else. I mean, the letters that the police and Scotland Yard received, I mean, they're fair few and in between. Most of them were considered hoaxes.
Yeah.
It was only the first one that would have DNA on that they could take later on, you know, as the years progressed.
Yeah.
And they would try and find someone. But the rest, like the From Hell letter, which I was so upset about, I think the From Hell letter's worth it. But that was actually from like a student. And he sent in things to the police. And when they did you know, they checked it all over and stuff. Like the From Hell letter is incredibly done. And whoever did write these letters came from a really intelligent background. So our suspect's got to be someone smart. Well, not necessarily smart, but I mean, today's day and age, I mean, you don't get many people that can actually, you know, write words that they used back then.
No.
Most people, it's like, see you later. Like, it's so blunt and pointless.
Yeah,
Who sends letters nowadays?
It's now text speak.
Yeah.
Like, everything's
Whereas
shorthand.
back then you had the English vocabulary and it was such a big...
It's wide.
Yeah,
Right.
it's such a big adjustment to what we use now. Everything now is shortened and abbreviated.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, they would use such big words that you would instantly read them and think, wow, they must have been really intelligent. Like,
And
just to use
most
a big
of the
word.
people there, like, obviously, they would go to school, yeah. Like, everyone's go to school,
Yeah.
everyone go to thing, but the people that would really be,
I mean, there
for a
wasn't-
better word, educated would be
Yeah.
the higher classes.
Which then points me back into the medical field.
Like, being a doctor, you have to have
It literally
that
points me.
background.
It points me into the medical field. But do you think it was the organs and so on being removed? Do you think it was like devil worship, sacrifice, or do you think there was a bigger motive behind it?
I think there was a bigger motive.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't suggest.
Can you imagine? There's a guy like in like a little basement, and he's building the perfect woman, and he's like, "Oh, I'll take your womb,
start from
I'll
the
take
bottom
you,
up."
I'll take your kidney, and I'm gonna build the perfect woman." Because all the prostitutes just don't do it for me, darling. Can you imagine that? Like, it doesn't.
For me, that one, no.
No, but can you imagine someone just sat there doing that? Like, oh, I took her
Like
kidney.
that
I'm gonna
perfect sculpture.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm going to take bits of these people, and just because I like them. Like, maybe there was something about that woman's womb that he thoroughly loved. I mean, it's a shame to some instances that they can't. Obviously, if they dig up the body now, it's pointless. But it's a shame they didn't do the forensic search of what bodily fluids was really around. Like, they didn't go further into
But then they didn't have that thing back
But
then.
can you imagine it? Like, they do a
But,
vagina swab and there's like 800 different men on that woman. You're like, whoa! Whoa!
She needs to be burned.
That's a bucket. That's a bucket. That's a bucket of semen. But
yeah,
you think there was
as
a bigger
we said,
picture?
like we don't really have like it said like obviously you've got the medical like different aspects of it back then, but you wouldn't instantly go to do a swap. You wouldn't instantly.
No, they'd just look at the body and be like, yeah, it's mutilation.
Yeah.
Like I said, out of all of them, that woman who had the worst done to her, like you saw the picture of her face, it was cut up to fuck. Like, that is more brutal than the others had suffered. Although Mary Kelly, or was it Mary Jane Kelly? She was skinned
to the bone on certain aspects.
That makes me then think, who skins a butcher? What really baffles me about this is every death is still different. Every killing
it's slightly different, but slightly the same. Slightly different.
Can you imagine people dressing up as Jack the Ripper? Like,
you can imagine people would have, like, the people that just wanted to, get out and kill someone.
Do you reckon that it could have been like a gang mentality?
That's what I mean. It takes me back to that gang at the time.
It would be so interesting if there was cameras and stuff around back then, watching people.
What you would see, you would see groups of people going round beating the shit out of these like ladies of the night. Like, to get whatever they've earned, or to,
But I think many gentlemen around that time, I say gentlemen, but it's more scum, but many scum guys around that area would use one of these women, or use the prostitutes, beat the shit out of them afterwards and take their money back. Yeah. And to go so far as killing them, and not having sex with them. Not doing anything sexual and just popping them off one by one. Like, to me, that's not using them for what they're on the streets for.
And that's like, to me, obviously, because their money was still there, everything they've earned was still with them. Yeah. So it's not even a gang mentality of going out like.
It's not like six of them are fucking her up and then having sex with her while they're fucking her up and then leaving. No. They didn't take no money from these women. No. They didn't take anything.
Nothing apart from
an organ.
Let's
take an organ, it's fine.
Keep your shilling, I'll have your fucking lung or something.
But it was the sense of how they've been killed. Like you said, every single one's different. Mary Jane Kelly and Elizabeth Stride were the worst, I think we said. Or was it Catherine Eddowes?
It was,
Catherine Eddowes.
Eddowes.
And Mary Jane Kelly. They seem to be the fucking extreme ones. And from my head to process the two extreme to the three, boring.
Like, to me, it then, it goes on to that bloke that commits suicide in the Thames shortly after.
Yeah. When you do something
because you've got so frustrated because you've started killing 3 of them
very boringly.
You get caught, then it's that Jekyll and Hyde bit. Dr. Hyde.
Do you think then that guy that committed suicide? Do you think that guy committed suicide? He did the most sadistic thing you could do to a human being,
and then offed himself.
And then it fucked him in the head for that bad. I mean, can you imagine the blood of skinning a woman alive, or skinning an animal alive, like a big animal, like a human being? The amount of blood that would be shed everywhere. But then her night clothes and the clothes she wore that night were folded up in the corner.
You know what I mean? Like, it is that thing.
See,
but then
I think
if that drove him to commit suicide, you think, okay, I would imagine that was the case.
It was the hitter. It would be the one that would push you.
No, it's pushed me over the edge. And then you kind of like.
So then you maybe
walk down from Whitechapel to the Thames.
Yeah.
With that shit rolling through your head.
No, fuck it.
And you're like, no, that's it. I'm done.
So you think all these traumatic events led up to possibly someone's own suicide attempt? See, I don't think so. But I'm just quite a sadistic mind in the way I'm thinking.
Like, to me, it was a big build-up to an inevitable end.
Yeah. But for them people...
And then that's why they couldn't really find Jack the Ripper, because it stopped, apparently.
But then, obviously, in the UK, you had the Yorkshire Ripper, which was many, many years later in our time when we were alive. Like, we had the Yorkshire Ripper, and that kind of followed suit. He targeted prostitutes yet again, and it kind of went... Maybe it's a family trait.
Maybe it is a family trait. Maybe there wasn't an illegitimate son or daughter or family.
You never know.
You never know. Or maybe this
was
was the son of someone.
So you think it was...
And they had brothers and so on.
So you think it's sacrifice?
I think this was...
Looking at your sheet of
going
and how it died,
yeah,
how it was all orchestrated, every weekend, woman.
It was more of a... I would say it was...
Whoever did the killings...
It was killed by chance to begin with, but then it became more targeted.
Whoever did the killings clearly worked a Monday to Friday job.
Yeah, so they all had other duties.
Yeah, they had other duties. It could have been an informant, someone inside. They would then know what the fuck is going on. How close are you to getting caught if you were the person?
Because there is some people saying it was a policeman.
Yeah, but
or a night watchman. Sorry, at the time.
Yeah, but such a drastic scale. Like every weekend, there's a death. Yeah. Every now and then, there's like something missing.
Yeah,
there's something missing.
Something missing.
It doesn't
add up.
It doesn't. But you were gonna go with the one that topped himself after that one.
I would probably say that as the build up.
Yeah.
You know, he was protecting his wife, as we went before, to like keep her off the street, to blah blah blah, and then finally off himself right at the end after what he realised maybe that what he had done. Or like he's got nothing else to live for now, so fuck it.
See, to me, it's the killings were brutal. They got worse. So a simple stab, a
simple cut throat. You can walk away and you'd be like, well, that happened.
That's nothing compared to the rest.
No,
but I feel that if you were to look at it in different orders, I mean that there's been like other people that came forward that said, oh, it was a man. I still genuinely don't think it was a man.
You still generally think it's a female? Which does fit. Because,
alright, a man knows where the vagina is. He wouldn't know, unless the medical background's there, he wouldn't know how to remove it. And where's he going to learn the medical background to remove a womb?
True. True.
And
there is medical books and journals,
but to have it that exact, of the incision, the removal, how it was done, I reckon it was a woman.
Okay. No, that's fair play. Or unfair play, should I say.
But unfair.
Yeah, unfair.
But no, I genuinely think it was a woman, and if everyone's looking for a man, they're not going to suspect a woman. If it's a woman, a midwife, she's already covered in blood, it makes no difference. All the police got to do is stop her and be like, where have you been tonight? Oh, I've just delivered the baby down here. She hadn't. But then by the time...
they're not going to check.
No, why would they check?
Why would they check?
Why would they check?
Makes sense.
But you'll never know. And that's the depressing part of it. But then that's what carries the legacy of it. That's what carries
the legend.
Yeah.
That's what's built up the whole
so
thing.
The amount of people that would then look at this and think like, well, who was it?
Just don't know.
You don't know, but the gruesome aspects of it all.
I'm still a firm believer it's building up to a specific thing. Like going back to, obviously I've got an interest in psychology.
Yeah.
You know, starting off, you know, it's okay, I can get away with this. Okay, I'm keeping her at home. Okay, it's fine.
You can see that happening.
You can see it happening.
Yep.
You can believe it.
You can see striking fear into a woman of less power.
Back then.
Yeah. Keeping her at home.
You know, and then you get about halfway through, you know, you're down on your luck, you've lost your job.
Yeah.
She's then having to go, well, we need money, so I've got to go back to what I usually do.
And he's angry.
And
Domestic violence takes
domestic violence.
He's sick of her drinking.
Yeah.
He
will
the
then
chap in
either
question
go out.
wanted her to be a woman. Wanted her not to sell body parts to every person out there.
Yeah.
He wanted her to himself, which I can fully understand.
Mm.
He wanted her off
And
the
you
streets. He
think,
was madly in love. You can see how he didn't want her to be at
that
home.
rage takes over. And then it goes on to, obviously...
He kills her friends.
He kills the friends, he kills her associates.
Yeah.
He's got to now that point where she's like, you know what, I need to go on, I need to earn money, blah, blah, blah. She's gone out, done something with one of them or many of them.
He weren't happy with her.
He's then gone out, followed her, found what she's been doing, and who she's been doing with.
He wasn't happy.
Or a partner.
He wasn't happy with her spending time with women and bringing them back to his home.
No. So then he off one of them, got interrupted by another one of the
prostitute gang.
Of the gang. Then killed her horrifically because she's like, I'm going to go and tell Mary, blah, blah, blah.
But it's also another symbol, isn't it?
And then
You fuck someone up that bad.
Oh, yeah.
You fuck someone up to the point where they're disfigured for life, even if they survived. Like, she would never be able to make money because she's fuck ugly. Like, you've ruined that person's life, or any type of way of making money. I mean, over the years, obviously, the scars will heal and their face might go back to normal,
but still,
that
those scars are there.
Yeah.
You know, if you're paying for that
she would never
then you're not gonna... You know,
if you're paying for a good woman, you want a good woman.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
You're not going to have someone covered in scars and warts and...
No.
But then again, they're putting their dicks in this shit. Full of herpes and genital warts and lumps and...
God knows else what. Green, gooey liquid.
6 other men have popped it
stuff in it.
Oh, God.
Never eat custard.
Yellow crusty. Oh.
No, but you know, I mean, like, and then obviously, you know, going back to the top 5, like, you know, he brutally fucks up Catherine Eddowes.
Yeah.
And who says that I'm telling Mary, blah,
it's pretty
blah, blah.
brutal, to be fair.
She's seen this.
Yeah.
And then, like, in the inevitability, over the next 10 days, she finds out something, blah, blah, blah. And then he just twists, he clicks, he goes. Like, his mentality now, his psychology now, is I've got nothing left.
Yeah.
You know, she's gone, I know what you've been doing. Like, I'm going. You've lost me. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to the police. I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
Right.
And then he then kills her horrifically in the bed that she's sleeping in. Like, goes, like, literally walks down out the door, gets to the Thames, realises what the fuck he's done after that brief cool down.
Yeah.
And commits suicide there and then.
See?
Because he's now got nothing left to live for. You know, he's done all of this for his wife. His wife now doesn't want him, and he's fucked up his wife. He's now got nothing to go on for.
He's got nothing left.
And they're gonna know it's him.
Yep.
Through her.
Yep.
Through the mutilation.
Yeah.
And then it stops from then after.
So,
supposedly. So that's what's built me from
the thought process,
from the thought
going
process.
straight into that bit. But it's like, for 3 months in 1888, fear and panic stalked the streets of London's East End. During these months, 5 women were murdered and horribly mutilated by a man who became known as Jack the Ripper, although some believe the true number may have been 11. Right?
That's what I mean, like the in-between bits.
Right.
But they're just the top 5.
So we're looking at, like, you can see a map. You can see how... Yeah.
How they're found. There's you know, there's illustrations around from, you know, they're reaching for something or pointing to an alleyway. A lot of the...
They're popping up again. James Maybrick, aged 50, suspected arsenic poisoning. His wife Florence was arrested, convicted, and then re-released, examining the case. Barbrick was not considered a suspect at the time of the murder or even mentioned in the Ripper case until more than a century after his death. not surprisingly, as he was a cotton merchant residing in London. This is the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
In 1992, a diary surfaced taking credit for... It's getting quite hot. Taking credit for the slaying of the 5 Ripper victims, as well as 2 other murders. Although a name is not mentioned in this diary, it is widely accepted due to references and hints throughout this that this was Maybrick's diary. Then, in 1993, a gentleman's pocket watch was discovered that had J. Maybrick scratched on the cover, alongside the initials of the 5 Ripper victims and the words, "I am Jack." The watch was made in 1847 or 1848 and tested as proved that the engravings on the watch
are the same with the engravings on the diary.
Yeah. The diary and watch are the only 2 connections to the Ripper murders. Although the watch has some credibility in regard to its authenticity, the diary evidence is surrounded in doubt.
Yeah,
Firstly,
you can fake a diary.
Yeah. Firstly, question was the discovery of the diary, and the story changed from it being given by this guy to a friend and then handed down in his wife's family. So the story changed. But the watch itself, no. So you have Sickert, who was a British painter. You have Francis Tumblety was suspected of being Jack the Ripper at the time of the murders. He was arrested on 7th November 1888 on unrelated charges and released on bail. Knowing that he was considered a suspect in the Ripper murders, Tumblety fled back to the United States via France. There is rumour that Scotland Yard tried to extradite him, but the New York City police said there is no proof of the complicity of the Whitechapel murders.
Yeah.
That Aaron guy still keeps coming up though.
Yeah.
But then the doubt of this is there was only suspicion prior to 2007. No evidence was found connecting Posminsky to the Ripper case prior to this.
No.
On his admission to the asylum...
Purely just his background.
Yeah. On his admission to the asylum in 1891, he was not considered a danger to others, which brings into question whether Posminsky had the violent tendencies that Jack the Ripper showed through his brutal slayings.
It just got worse over the course of start to finish.
It doesn't make sense for anyone to
say yes he is, yes they are, yes she is, yes. Like, there's no concrete evidence.
And that's the
they're all
annoying
slightly
part.
different, but slightly the same. And that's what's annoying about it.
It leaves everything unhinged.
Yeah.
But every person has their suspicion.
Yeah.
And
good reasons.
And it kind of goes down that line of, like, you know, what we said about conspiracy theorists and stuff. It goes down that line of, like, who was it?
Yeah.
How
everyone has their own little input.
Yeah. How did you... But for me to think it's a woman still stands highly in my head. Whereas you're going for the guy that obviously was obsessed with, you know...
With keeping his wife.
Yeah.
As his wife.
Yeah. And no one else can touch her and anything else.
Yeah. It's more of the jealousy aspect. Like, for me, it fits perfectly.
Jealousy can drive
psychology.
someone to rage. Easy.
And then rage, it's a short sidestep for rage to kill her.
It is. Oh, these candles have their little wax. I didn't really know there's difference to this. Your candle's bigger than mine!
No, I just got more wax left in my candle.
So, you're going with that suspect.
Yep.
And I'll go with the woman suspect. And I'm still really confused. But, obviously we said all the letters were pretty much fraudulent, fakes. Apart from that one.
Apart from the one.
The first one. The first one. But I was really upset with the From Hell one. I was really upset.
I know, I could see it. As soon as she was like, it's not real.
I was pissed. I was pissed. Because the whole idea of
idea from a hell letter.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of these barbaric events that took place to these 4 women. Well, four women, but the 5 one just had the slip.
Yeah.
Like, these hellish events, to then obviously send a letter to the police saying From Hell. Like, whoever done this must have been, like, it's untapped. It's untapped.
It's one of those things that they
it's
would have
devilishly
to have
vicious.
The psychotic mind of a killer.
Yeah, it's devilishly vicious.
To do it.
You must be the devil to figure out this type of shit. Maybe it was used in sacrifice.
Maybe not. Like, why would there only be half a human kidney? that was sent into the police? Why not a whole kidney?
Maybe he ate the or she ate the rest. Maybe they were cannibals.
We just don't know.
Maybe it was a gang of cannibals terrorising.
Gang of cannibals.
Just up
floating down the town.
Dressed up in caveman outfits.
Running around in dark hoods.
I mean, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
You're cutting off people's bits and bobs and removing them. Are you eating them? What happened to the wound?
There is the certain rituals, including the wound, that
yeah, but what happened to it?
inspire long life and fertility.
Fertility would then indicate a woman. A man wouldn't care whether he remains fertile or not. A woman would. She has a time period. She has a place.
Mm.
Like, every time a woman, hits that monthly thing, she loses so many eggs.
Mm.
So, it would...
But then it's just like a human recycle, really, isn't it? Like,
yeah, but for a woman to lose eggs during her monthly process, to then become less and less infertile as the years progress.
yeah.
Like, I gather, 16, 15, I don't know these fucking 15-year-olds, but 16, 17, 18-year-olds, your eggs are at your peak.
Mm.
When you reach, 30, there's barely any eggs left.
Mm.
So to eat a woman to allegedly remain fertile, I told you, it's a woman. Told you. Women are sadistic, I bet you it's a woman.
And to tidy up afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. To tidy up and put your bed sheet back to normal.
Not what we're saying that that's what they do, but I'm just...
I reckon it's a woman. And her name was Jill.
Jill Dandy.
She already killed Jack.
Yeah, you're throwing him down the well.
But it does kind of...
Yeah.
It does fit my bill.
Mm.
But human sacrifice... No, I don't know. Human sacrifice, I don't think so. I think there was a hidden motive.
It's more cult ritualist. Ritualistic rather than sacrifice.
Yeah, to take human organs and use them in a sense of however they were used, whether they were sent in and it was from someone pulling a prank, or whether this, that, or the other.
Mm.
If the letter was fake, so could the kidney being sent in be fake. There was nothing around that time period that said it came from that woman.
No.
Could have been a pig's kidney.
Could have been. That's why it was only half. Maybe that half looks more like.
Well, a pig's heart and a human's heart are exactly the same.
Yeah, we've got the same. What's it? 6 valves.
Yeah, so they look exactly the same. So, could have been the butcher.
Could have been. Or maybe it could have been the butcher that was just like, you know what?
I'm not selling much pig. Gotta sell prostitute.
Well, there we are.
Still pissed off with the From Hell though.
No.
I actually wanted a tattoo that said From Hell 1888. Or 1888.
1888.
I wanted.
Well, now you'll have to get it for a new reason.
It's not the point. I just wanted it on my finger saying From Hell and then 1888. Because, Jack the Ripper obsesses in my head.
It's a big draw.
I like the movie From Hell. And I like all the other documentations that they've done on Jack the Ripper. I find it all deeply fascinating. But
I find it fascinating because it's unsolved.
Yeah, but so's many other mysteries.
Yes, but then, they're not big headliners. You know what I mean?
Jack the Ripper has its place in history. Definitely. So you think it was the guy that topped himself and threw himself in the Thames? I think it's a woman. And I bet the viewers now
say... vote in the comments.
I bet everyone's like, oh, no, it weren't him, it was him. Oh, alright. Pick who you want.
But no, yeah.
You're never going to be right. You can Google it and it does say it's unidentified.
Yeah, it's unidentified.
And it's really annoyed me.
I can see. But we'll leave it there.
But I do like Jack.
Alright, thanks for watching this one.
Yeah.
We
can't solve the case. So maybe you guys can.
I've had great enjoyment in doing the research for this case, or for this one.
Yeah, but we haven't come up with any good conclusion.
Well, no, but
you just telling me what you think.
That is a conclusion in some aspects. Just saying.
Yeah, but we haven't identified.
Well, obviously, like, we haven't got, like, the UK crime fighting equipment.
UK crime fighters. Neighbourhood Watch, that's what they needed back then. They needed Neighbourhood Watch.
Well, they did, apparently, because the husband offed himself.
Yeah, but they
night
did.
watchmen that fallen asleep. Like, come on, behave.
Just goes along with every other security guard in the world. They fall asleep doing the job.
Yeah.
But what baffles me is how he has got away with it, or she has got away with it. I mean, we'll go with Jack the Ripper as a man, but my mind says woman. But he got away with it, and whether he did top himself, whether he did just die of natural causes, or whether he did just, whether he did just disappear or travel somewhere. Like, he got away with brutal killings, which have now marked a massive piece in history, especially the UK's history.
Maybe it was you. Maybe you got a
time travel.
You time travelled like 20 years from now, and you think, you know what, I'm going to become Jackie the Ripper.
Jackie.
Yeah, the Monster Ripper.
Jackie the Monster Ripper. That would be my name, would it?
Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Jackie. No, I wouldn't call myself Jackie.
Might be Jack.
I wouldn't call myself Jack.
The Jumping Jack Flash.
I wouldn't take you, mate. I'd be spotted in it. If I killed anyone, they'd know it was me. They'd be like, no, my luck, I wouldn't even finish the job. They'd still
He's got a knife in his hand, and when I saw the flash tattoo,
he's got a flash tattoo. He's covered in scribbles. I couldn't get away with killing anyone. This is what baffles me about serial killers and this guy or girl. They get away with it. Piss easy. It'll play on my conscience. Maybe. I would time travel though. Would you time travel?
I would time travel.
Would you time travel to this period?
Hell no, I'll probably get killed.
No. No. So you time travelled and you went back.
Maybe I'm the butcher.
Behave.
No,
No,
my sausages.
Don't want your sausages. We talked about that in the crime one. It's probably skinned. So say you time travelled, right? And say you were in that area at this time frame. Would you tell Mary and Nicole? Nicole? Yeah? Nichols?
You're gonna die.
Yeah, would you protect her from death and then tell the others what was happening, or would you just allow it to happen to then have this massive middle?
To then figure out who it was?
No, or would you just...
I would observe.
So you wouldn't stop it?
I wouldn't interrupt history.
So you wouldn't stop it?
But I would observe, purely for the fact, because I want to know who the fuck it is.
So
what the hell?
So right, you just observe, you wouldn't stop it. So what about then if you went back in time and you did stop it? What's this podcast? What would it be?
Well, I don't really know much about quantum reality.
So I went back in time.
I'm way out of my depth at that point.
So it'd be like, I went back in time and I stopped the Jack the Ripper killings, but here's evidence it happened.
I saw it myself.
See, I'd go back in time.
I've got it on my newfangled smartphone.
I'd go back in time.
I also invented.
You probably developed Google while you're there, wouldn't you? You'd be like, it's Google, Google.
Fuck it, everyone's using it.
You've developed Google, be a millionaire, you wouldn't even sat on my own going, the names of the prostitutes, or some of them were,
that may have been killed. They haven't found them yet. I'm just like, I know it is! I know!
So would you like to know that? Or would you rather it remained a mystery?
See, for me, I don't like anything unsolved.
Right.
I would love to find out who it was.
Right.
But then the legend technically would then
it takes
fizzle.
away everything.
It would fizzle because you know the end.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's like literally watching the movie 600 times.
If you get to the end of the film, pause it, like about 10 minutes before the end of the film.
Yep.
And then someone goes, "Oh, did you see the ending? It was amazing." And you're like, "Huh?" And then you can't find that film again.
Yeah.
You're like,
I'm with you. Do you know what I did once though? Like when I was forced to watch the Titanic. Like, no, because I fucking hate the Titanic. Right? To make it a bit more interesting, I watched it backwards. So I watched it from end to beginning. and that boat saved him. The boat saved him. Literally flew back in. I was like, oh wow, that's a better story in itself. So watching the Titanic,
it's a whole new twist.
Yeah, watch the Titanic backwards. It's about a boat that saves someone.
Comes back to life from freezing anyway. That's just cryogenics.
But I don't think I'd love to know who it was. Maybe if...
Would you stop that happening? Or would you witness it, or would you just be like, no, no, and just...
I'll tell you what though, as I'm quite a sadistic motherfucker, I'd witness the killings, but I'd never say who it was.
You would witness the killings,
yeah,
but you'd be like,
if I went
I
back,
don't know who it was though.
If I went back,
it was just a dark figure
if I went
through with high heels on and a fake moustache.
If I went back in time, and no one could see me, I would probably take great pleasure in watching this happen and be like, oh wow.
So that's what it
yeah,
looks
so
like.
that's what the womb looks like from the inside. But no,
I was wearing it the mask.
But no, I would go back in time and just watch to see if all of this plays out of what I know. To see if everything they said is correct. And if it wasn't...
See what bits are
yeah,
correct and
see what bits work.
Someone's...
But then I'd also like the ability to float around, to pause time, and to see where all these suspects were when this was happening. But I still wouldn't like to know who it was.
No.
I'd just watch the killings. I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'd watch the next bit, I'd be like, oh. And where was this guy? Where's this guy live? Oh, okay, I'll go find him. Oh, he's jumped in the river. I suppose if I rescue him now, I can't swim. Fuck it. I've ruined it, mate. If I went back in time and tried to fucking help this out, the whole world would be a shithole. You would.
Yeah, but and then apparently he came to life, and some bloke disappeared into like a quantum leap thing. I don't know what that was.
It would literally be a shithole. Like everything went in now.
Sorry, you go back to doing what you're doing, and then I'll be back later. And then that was it. That was
honestly, if I went back in time and tried stopping this from happening, the world would be fucked. Like, all I've got to do is walk into the Bell's pub, have a drink, make me having that drink in the Bell's pub. That's it. That's it.
Do you want a good time, lovey? Fuck off. Syphilis woman.
Keep your crusty crabs to yourself. But no, but no, I would, yeah, if I went back in time, I'd fuck everything up for everyone. You know what I'm like, I'd be too...
You'd trip over something.
I'd be too curious. I'd be like, oh, that happened. Wait, let me go check. And I'll go running off and see Sweeney Todd. And I'll be like, oh, what are you doing? He'd be like, do you want to shave? I'll be like, no. I know what you're capable of.
Oh, actually, no.
But the thing is, I'd fuck it up. I'd then tell someone that Sweeney Todd tried to kill me. That would ruin his history. Mate, you'd have nothing. England would be a pitiable mess.
The only thing we'd have was Jack the Ripper.
We'd have Jack the Ripper that didn't kill anyone. Why? Because they were trying to cohort me into bed. And I was like, no, get up.
Kill them all.
There's Jack the Ripper eagerly awaiting, like fucking,
Mary.
Yeah, he's eagerly waiting Mary round the corner, and there she is trying to get on me. I'm like, fuck off! And she's like, oh, go on, darling. I'm like, no, go away. In that process, Jack the Ripper gets bored, he fucks off home. Nothing happens, I ruin everything.
She goes round another corner, gets run over by a horse and carriage.
Mate, I've ruined the whole trial. Do you see how it works?
He then runs up, stabs her 3 times.
Mate, I fuck up the present, let alone fuck up the past or the future. All I've got to do is grab this mic, I'll fuck the world up.
It's like...
I'll be silenced eventually. They'll cut down our YouTube channel. They'll be like, no, take that fucker off. I'll be like, no, it's my platform. This is the only way I can build a cult.
He can stay, but you've got to pixelate him.
I'd be a Minecraft character.
It's like this, wouldn't it? That's all you can see. It's like, talking from an unknown presence.
An unknown location. I would, mate. Honestly, like I said, I'd fuck up the present. If I went back in time to stop this happening, mate, I'd fuck up the world.
But no. In all seriousness,
it's dangerous,
it is
mate.
dangerous.
Mate, you know what I'm like. I can't even fucking cook anything without almost setting the house on fire. I don't know fucking do this podcast. Fucking hell.
Well, thank you for watching on that note, and see you guys in the next one.